This is the third in a 12-week series at Wallen Baptist Church in Fort Wayne, Indiana, toward a biblical understanding of hope, more hope in the law, the first 5 books of the Old Testament. We're continuing from last week on the law. We begin this week in Exodus 13 with the promise of divine guidance. The words there make it clear that God led them, but not by the near way. The people of Israel were led to the land of promise, but not the way that you might expect. We see also, by way of encouragement in these verses, that God's leading is very specifically promised in a pillar of fire by night and a pillar of smoke or cloud by day. The pillar of cloud was given to lead them, and the pillar of cloud is referenced repeatedly elsewhere in Scripture, in Nehemiah, in the Psalms, in the New Testament, in 1 Corinthians, in Isaiah 4:5. In the Psalms, it makes clear in those passages that the cloud, that God spoke to them from the cloud, and the cloud represented God's inimitable presence. The cloud served to remind them of that as a manifestation of the presence of God, the glory of God from Exodus 16 and 19, His protection from Exodus 14, just the next chapter, to guard them from their enemies. The pillar of fire by night was provided to give them light. These pillars, both the pillar of cloud and fire, promised God's presence, His guidance, and His protection. It certainly reminds us of the burning bush incident and the necessity of that, the instruction that would provide. A theophany, simply stated, is a word that refers to an appearance of God in the Old Testament, and we certainly see that here in these pillars. Fire was, and it will become, an integral part of the way the Israelites understand who God is and His power to judge in Genesis 19, Sodom and Gomorrah, in Exodus 9, in the plagues narrative, as He pours out His wrath on stubborn Pharaoh. We see the multitude of burnt offerings in Leviticus, in proper worship of Yahweh, and His glorious, unbearable presence on Mount Sinai as the Israelites beg for Him to stay far away, for them to remain far away. Fire in the Old Testament is explicitly connected to God's holiness. Exodus 3, Numbers 11, 1 Kings 18, in Elijah's story, as even the rocks are consumed, and in Isaiah 6, where the angels cry, "Holy, holy, holy." These pillars led them throughout all their journeys. The second instance of encouragement or hope for this evening is God's provision of manna. Manna, what is it, according to the Israelites? Yahweh says in Exodus 16:4 that He's about to rain bread from heaven for them. And that provision of bread was itself a powerful demonstration of God's grace. Peter Enns has gone so far as to say if anyone needs convincing of the grace of God in the Old Testament, they should only look here. Israelites grumble and complain, and right in the wake of that, God provides them with all their needs. The manna and the quail, the meat and the bread, serve to teach Israelites something about God, that they will know that it was Yahweh who brought them out of Egypt. They'll need to know that as we approach the golden calf narrative. Very intriguingly, we see the bread was not just any ordinary bread. It tastes like honey, perhaps a foretaste, literally, of a land flowing with milk and honey. And we are drawn magnificently to Jesus' declaration of Himself in John 6 in the New Testament as the bread of life. God's grace. God gives them exactly what they longed for back in Egypt, meat and bread, as He graciously provides for them in the wake of their grumbling and groaning and arguing. Exodus 17, water is given from the rock. Yahweh's provision again follows directly after Israel's quarreling with Moses. The people accuse Moses of trying to kill them with thirst, and Moses cries out to God and believes that his people are about to stone him to death. People don't quarrel again until Numbers chapter 20, so perhaps there was a bit of a respite there for the people. The people are provided meat and bread directly before they meet the Amalekites in battle at Rephidim. Could His provision have been at a more opportune time? God's specific provision for them in the Ten Commandments, the Decalogue, is marvelous. People were given specific revelation in the wilderness as to how they should live, how they should approach Yahweh, how they should live in relationship with their fellow man. All of these commands flow out of his foundational statement of self-disclosure that he is the Lord, their God. God provides a guardian angel in Exodus 23, sent from him to guard them, to guide them. This guardian angel will go before the people in their conquest of Canaan. He is to be carefully obeyed because God's name is in him. This angel will represent the surety, the certainness of God's promise to Abraham of a land, of a place. The blessing given to Aaron, the wonderful benediction passed on from Yahweh to Moses, then to Aaron, is a sign of great hope, of blessing, of keeping, of guidance, of grace, of attention, his face shining upon us to give them shalom, peace. As the spies go into Canaan in Numbers 13, we see Moses' hopefulness there as he repeats God's words that God will give Canaan into the people of Israel's hands. The majority of the spies, as we know, come back, and there's observation was the land is surpassingly wonderful. Unfortunately, it's currently inhabited by giant people with giant cities with giant fortifications. Joshua and Caleb have a different message. They have not forgotten what God told Moses. This conquest of Canaan was in the mind of God, not an open question. The 10 spies keep dissenting. They actually accuse the land of being dangerous, of swallowing its inhabitants, and we marvel that they ever made it there at all. An 11-day journey in 40 years. As Moses passes off the scene and passes the mantle to Joshua, we're reminded that Yahweh is the hero here and not Joshua. Yahweh will go before, destroy. He will do for them, give the land to them and the people living in that land, never leaving or forsaking them. Peter Craigie says with full confidence in the presence of God in their midst, the army of the Lord could not fail to be victorious in the conquest, and soon the land which had been long promised would become their possession in reality. What hope do we find here as we conclude our study of these first 5 books? We see guidance, provision, instruction, faithful promises, obedience, a just dealing with his enemies, and God's gracious activity toward his children. We are assured of his headship, and we are assured that he will bless us and keep us, give us guidance, make his face to shine upon us, and give us peace. May he do so for you.